Egypt.
Egypt was the world's first great superpower. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had clearly stated before his passing that Muslims would one day conquer Egypt. However, he advised that, when they do, they should treat the common people well because they are like family. A few years after the Prophet's passing, under the leadership of Umar ibn Khattab, Muslims defeated the Roman and Persian empires, gaining control over vast territories. However, as soon as they took over these lands, a deadly plague spread rapidly, slowing down their progress and leading to the martyrdom of several senior generals. This allowed new generals to rise and take charge of the Muslim forces. In response to the crisis, Umar appointed new generals, including Amr as the army chief of Egypt. Gradually, the plague subsided. Upon learning of the situation, Umar himself set out from Medina to assess and control the conditions. Before leaving, he entrusted the governance of Medina and the entire Arabian Peninsula to Ali ibn Abi Talib. Had anything happened to Umar during the journey, Ali would have automatically become the new caliph. Upon reaching Syria, Umar met with Amr ibn al-As, who presented an ambitious plan. Instead of halting expansion, he proposed moving toward Egypt. Egypt was not just any land, it had been one of the richest regions in the world for thousands of years. As emphasized in the Quran, 5,000 years ago, water was the most crucial resource, and the region with the most water held the greatest power. The Nile River, the world's largest river, had made Egypt the most prosperous land, attracting people from all over the world to settle there. This led to Egypt becoming the world's most powerful region. Among these settlers emerged King Narmer, who united Egypt and established the world's first monarchy. The earliest Egyptian writings, found onto ancient tablets, depict King Narmer. Over the next 1,000 years, the Egyptian empire grew stronger and dominated the world. After ruling as a superpower for a millennium, the pharaohs began to believe they were unrivaled in the universe. They took an unprecedented step, declaring themselves not just kings but gods. They created a religion that positioned the pharaoh as a deity and taught that common people could only attain paradise by remaining subservient to him. This prevented the people from rebelling against their rulers. As time passed, a new belief emerged. Not all pharaohs were gods, only those whose bodies remained intact after death. This led to a race among pharaohs to preserve their bodies eternally, which resulted in the development of mummification. When a pharaoh died, his blood was drained, and his brain was extracted through his nose using a hooked instrument. All internal organs, lungs, liver, kidneys were removed, except for the heart, which was preserved in a special jar. The body was then submerged in a solution mixed with special salts for 40 days. Afterward, it was filled with sand to retain its shape, coated with oils and honey, wrapped in linen, and placed inside an elaborate coffin. Along with the mummy, food, treasures, and, most importantly, the heart were buried in the tomb. Over time, mummification became a standard practice, but the competition among pharaohs escalated beyond mummies. They started constructing massive structures in their honor. Initially, these were simple buildings and temples, but gradually they grew larger, leading to the creation of pyramids. Every pharaoh wanted a bigger pyramid than his predecessor, and these monuments became enormous. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built by Pharaoh Khufu, remained the tallest structure in the world for 3,500 years. Eventually, London's church surpassed its height, but it soon collapsed, making the pyramid the tallest structure once again. In modern times, structures like the Eiffel Tower and Burj Khalifa have broken the record, but even today, the Great Pyramid remains heavier than 12 Burj Khalifas combined. It is so vast that 2,000 large trucks could easily be parked inside it. Pharaohs continued building pyramids, but they failed to realize the immense costs involved. As a result, the size of pyramids gradually decreased, and Egypt's economy weakened. For the first time in thousands of years, Egypt faced the risk of losing its superpower status. During this decline, a young boy was sold as a slave in Egypt's markets. However, he was exceptionally handsome, unlike any other, which caught the attention of a powerful Egyptian minister who adopted him. This boy, Prophet Yusuf Joseph, peace be upon him, later became Egypt's prime minister. He worked alongside the king to restore Egypt's economy and re-establish its status as a superpower. After Prophet Yusuf's passing, his descendants, known as Bani Israel, the children of Israel, remained in Egypt and eventually became the most influential people in the country. However, when they reached the peak of their power, a great war broke out, leading to the rise of a new pharaoh who overthrew the old dynasty and established his own rule. He introduced strict policies, including banning foreign settlers. This led to the oppression of the Israelites, who were subjected to extreme hardships, similar to modern policies against immigrants.
I will declare a national emergency at our southern border.
The new pharaoh targeted them by shutting down their businesses and enslaving them. For 400 years, the Israelites endured slavery, but they clung to the hope that a prophet would come to liberate them, exactly as foretold. 400 years later, an astrologer warned Pharaoh that a child would soon be born among the Israelites who would bring down his 3,000-year-old empire. Terrified, Pharaoh ordered the killing of every newborn Israelite boy. Soldiers went from house to house, seizing and killing infants. However, the child they were seeking, Prophet Musa Moses, peace be upon him, escaped death and was raised in Pharaoh's own palace. Years later, after becoming a prophet, Musa confronted Pharaoh and demanded the freedom of Bani Israel. Despite witnessing many miracles, Pharaoh finally relented and allowed them to leave Egypt. In one night, 600,000 Israelites departed for Palestine after 400 years of enslavement. However, soon after granting them freedom, Pharaoh broke his promise and mobilized his army to chase them down. As Pharaoh and his soldiers pursued Bani Israel, they reached a dead end, the Red Sea. At that moment, Allah saved Musa and his people by parting the sea, allowing them to cross. When Pharaoh and his army followed, the waters closed in, drowning them all. Interestingly, Egyptian historical records do not mention Prophet Musa, and his story is found only in the Bible and the Quran. However, one fact is widely accepted by historians: Egypt never regained its former power after the death of Pharaoh Ramses. Musa's actions did not just destroy one ruler. They marked the beginning of the end of Egypt's 3,000-year dominance. Ramses was the last great pharaoh, and his arrogance led to his downfall. The world finally realized that pharaohs were not gods, just mortal men. Egypt's decline began, leading to a period known as the Dark Ages. Shortly after, a new superpower emerged in Palestine under the rule of King Suleiman, peace be upon him. Over time, Egypt's power continued to wane, and various empires conquered it, including the legendary Alexander the Great. However, after his empire collapsed, Egypt eventually fell under the rule of the mighty Roman Empire, which ruled Egypt for 600 years. During this time, no other power could challenge them. Finally, 6 centuries later, the prophecy of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was fulfilled. During the caliphate of Umar ibn Khattab, the Muslims stood at Egypt's gates, ready to take it from the Romans.